All right, let's talk about Spider-Man. I mean, he's one of the most beloved, most recognizable characters on the planet, right? So today, we're going to swing through 60 years of history to figure out how this nerdy kid from Queens became this massive global icon, and maybe what that says about the kind of heroes we really connect with.
So, before we get into it, I want to ask a question. What really makes a hero iconic? Is it the powers, the cool costume, the villains? For Spider-Man, the answer is actually something way deeper. And believe me, it completely changed the game for superheroes forever.
And this right here, this is what I'm talking about. Just look at the difference. Before Spider-Man, your typical hero was, a billionaire playboy, maybe an alien god, always perfect, always confident. And then you get Peter Parker, a broke high school kid, nerdy, unpopular, just riddled with self-doubt. He wasn't anybody's sidekick, he had no wise mentor guiding him, and honestly, his biggest villain sometimes wasn't a guy in a crazy costume. It was just paying the rent.
An unlikely hero, the struggles of the kid behind the mask. And that is exactly it. If you really want to get Spider-Man, you have to get Peter Parker first. The real magic isn't the web slinging. It's the totally human, totally relatable problems of the kid underneath the mask. And look, this wasn't some happy accident. This was the whole point from the get-go. And people got it, immediately. Get this, as early as 1965, Esquire magazine did a poll with college students, and they loved him. Why? Because, as they put it, he was beset by woes, money problems, and the question of existence. In short, he was one of us.
A revolutionary creation. How Stan Lee and Steve Ditko broke the superhero mold. So yeah, let's dive into how this all happened. What Stan Lee and Steve Ditko were doing was totally intentional. They looked at the superhero mold that had been around for decades and just decided to break it. The whole idea was to create a hero that you, the reader, could actually see yourself in. But here's the crazy part. The publisher at Marvel, a guy named Martin Goodman, he absolutely hated the idea. His thinking was, come on, teenagers are sidekicks, not main heroes, and nobody likes spiders. So Spider-Man was basically buried. He was only allowed to show up in what was supposed to be the very last issue of a failing comic, Amazing Fantasy number 15. He was just this throwaway experiment. But then the sales numbers came in. And what do you know? It was one of Marvel's biggest hits. Just like that.
And that success, it pretty much created a whole new kind of hero, the everyman hero. A character who feels, ordinary, relatable, someone who has to deal with everyday stuff like paying rent or struggling with homework. Lee and Ditko did it on purpose. They made a flawed hero with normal problems. So yeah, Peter Parker fought Dr. Octopus, for sure, but he was also stressing about homework, getting picked on by Flash Thompson, and always worrying about his Aunt May. This wasn't just some new character, you guys. This was a flat-out revolution in comics.
Power and responsibility, the tragic origin that defines a hero's entire life. Okay, so being relatable is great, but that's not the whole story. A hero needs a moral core, a reason they do what they do. And Spider-Man's origin, man, it's not just about getting bitten by a radioactive spider. It's so much more than that. It's honestly one of the most powerful, gut-wrenching moral lessons you'll find anywhere.
Let's just walk through it step by step. 1. Peter gets these incredible powers. 2. He immediately starts using them for himself, for fame, for money. 3. He gets a little arrogant, and when he has a chance to stop a thief, he just lets the guy go. Figures, not my problem. And then 4, and this is the part that changes everything. That exact same thief is the one who ends up murdering his beloved Uncle Ben. The connection is direct, it's personal, and it is absolutely devastating. His choice not to act had the ultimate cost. And right there, in that moment of absolute tragedy, his entire life's mission is forged. It all comes down to that famous line from the end of the comic, with great power, there must also come great responsibility. That one sentence becomes the engine driving every single thing he does from that point on. Every punch, every rescue, every sacrifice, it all comes back to that. It's not just a cool catchphrase, it's the code he lives by.
Evolving with the times, how Spider-Man has stayed relevant for over 60 years. So, okay, he was a game changer right from the start, but how does a character stay relevant for that long? Well, the secret is that Peter Parker was never frozen in time. The character, and the whole idea of Spider-Man, was constantly growing, constantly adapting right along with the audience.
And you can literally track it through the decades. In the 70s, the comic took on the censors to do a story about drug abuse, something that was unheard of. Then you jump to the 80s, and things get way darker and more complex. That's when we get the alien symbiote suit, which is basically a metaphor for his own dark side, and of course later becomes Venom. The 90s got weird, with the super controversial clone saga that made Peter question if he was even the real Peter Parker. And then by the 2010s, the whole idea expands. Miles Morales picks up the mantle, and suddenly the Spider-Verse is born.
And this is so important for why he still works today. The core idea of Spider-Man, an ordinary person who gets power and has to rise to the occasion, it's so powerful that it's not just tied to Peter anymore. It can be passed on. It can be reinterpreted for a whole new generation, with characters like Miles Morales or Gwen Stacy as Spider-Gwen. They prove the mask can belong to anyone.
An enduring global icon, from comic book page to worldwide phenomenon. So you take this constant evolution, you build it on that super relatable foundation, and what you get is not just a comic book character, you get a true global phenomenon. Seriously, his impact both culturally and financially is almost hard to wrap your head around.
So just how big are we talking? We'll get a load of this number. In 2014, and that's just 1 year, Spider-Man merchandise pulled in an estimated $1.3 billion. That's billion with a B. And to put that in perspective for you, back then that was more money than Batman, Superman, and the Avengers made combined. That's just insane.
And it's not just about money. His cultural footprint is everywhere. I mean, you've got multiple blockbuster movie series, decades of cartoons, there was even a Broadway musical. He's been a giant balloon in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. He's literally the mascot for Marvel Comics. He was even mentioned in a U.S. Supreme Court case. I'm not kidding. He is just woven into the fabric of our culture.
So this all brings us back to that first big question. After 60-plus years, with all the thousands of other heroes out there now, why? Why does this one character still connect so deeply with so many people all over the world?
I think this quote from IGN just nails it. He's just a normal guy with girlfriend problems and money issues, so he's more relatable. He is one of us. And that's it, right? It's not the spider strength, it's not the webs, it's the fact that underneath it all, he's just a guy. His humanity, that's his real superpower. He isn't some perfect ideal we can only look up to, he's a reflection of us.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. Because this idea is so timeless, so adaptable, the story just keeps evolving. Which means the big question isn't really just about Peter Parker anymore, it's about who's going to wear that mask next, and what will the Spider-Man of the next generation look like.